So now that we've talked about the Java supplier functional interface, let's talk about its sibling, its mirror twin, which is the Java consumer functional interface. And these interfaces are often used in conjunction with each other, the supplier to make something and the consumer to consume it. So we'll talk about the consumer functional interface and then show how you can use it in conjunction with lambda expressions and method references in Java in the context of this example, which you can get from my GitHub repository. And this particular example will show the Java list interface and the ArrayList class that come out of the Java collection framework and how they use and can be used in conjunction with consumers. So what is a consumer? A consumer is a functional interface that accepts a parameter and returns no results. So you can see here that consumer is parameterized by type T. It's a generic interface. It's parameterized by a single reference type. And it's got a single abstract method called accept, which is passed a single parameter and does not return anything. It returns void in quotes because it doesn't return anything. Let's talk about how you could apply the consumer functional interface. This is a very simple example because it demonstrates the features we've talked about before with other examples that came earlier. So here we're going to go ahead and create a list of threads. And just for kicks, we're going to have the threads be given the names of the three stooges. So we got Larry, Curly, and Mo. So the arrays.asList is a factor method that takes a bunch of parameters, in this case, a bunch of threads, and then makes a list of them. What we're then going to do is we're going to print out the threads using for each defined on the list interface. And we're going to print out each of the thread names by passing in a method reference for the println method. So system.out::println is a method reference for the println method. So let's take a look and see how the iterable interface uses the consumer functional interface. And of course, iterable is what the list class is going to extend through the collection interface. So here is the iterable interface and the for each method defined in the iterable interface. And you can see how it's passed a consumer parameter. And the consumer parameter is called action. And what happens inside of for each is it's going to iterate through every element in this object, in a list, for example, and it's going to call the accept method on the action, passing in each of the elements that's part of the object that we're iterating through. So in this particular case, the consumer parameter is going to be bound to the system.out::println method reference. So you can see consumer turns out to be system.out::println, which is the way that we define what println does, because println is going to take a parameter but not have a return. It's a void return. As you can see here, the action.accept call is effectively replaced by a call to system.out::println passing the parameter t. So that's how it gets expanded, effectively gets expanded when the method call is invoked. By the way, if you use this particular style of programming where you say for open paren t::this close paren, that triggers the creation of the iterator that's associated with this particular class, the subclass. In this case, it would be ArrayList, for example. And so this is a little bit mysterious. You have to do a little digging to figure out that's the way things work. But a for each loop will have that effect if you are going to go ahead and do for each on this. It triggers the iterator, which will create the object that will then walk through each of these elements one at a time. So that's the end of the discussion of the consumer Java functional interface.